is it here?
I'm not moving that.
See that easily or butt in?
Yeah, I was like, no.
I think that raising a physical hand and the rate, yeah, that works. It's easily, I won't say that anybody's ever going to be 100% on anything. So I think you should try, like go through the methods, starting with raising your hand, like raising the digital hand and then the physical waving. And then after that,
Interrupt.
yeah. If nobody acknowledges you and like if Rebecca doesn't say, Samantha, I see your
I'm gonna
hand.
do my best, but she has to put you on the screen because
Right, yeah, that would be key. So it's kind of funny having you say, is it easy to see right now? Because it's definitely not. If I can see you on my screen. Oh, okay.
Where is it here?
we can watch a movie.
That'd be nice. Okay. You should be. Use as a separate display. And then we will. Now it'll tell, okay, there we go.
All right, can we call the meeting to order? 12:08. Thanks for coming via Zoom or in person to the March meeting. Hopefully everybody had a good February. It's only a couple of days, but it always goes faster than any other month for some reason. Just two extra days make a difference. I don't know why. So the first order of business is to review and approve the minutes, which I fully recognize went out yesterday. Does anybody have any edits to the January 25th meeting minutes?
I just have a couple, just typo things with names mostly.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know.
Oh, I put BB. I just realized that. Poor Beatty, sorry, Beatty.
Yeah, Bill Parker, and Samantha Morlock. And
Yeah, there's
Yep.
a key in there.
there's a T in there. And just want to note, I prefer Pamela, but that's not necessarily a typo. And then down on number 7, it should say Allison. I think other than that, all of the notes are perfect.
Thank you. I'm gonna try to make them sort of as we. Just a second. So any other edits, comments, suggestions? Okay, seeing none, is there a motion to approve the January 25th minutes?
So moved.
Excellent. Second?
I second.
So, thank you so much. And save. Okay. Well, we have our select board liaison on the floor temporarily. So.
I don't think we voted to approve the minutes, not that it's really that big of a deal, did we? I didn't see the vote. I didn't hear a vote.
Yeah, you should probably,
Oh, sorry.
technically with the Zoom thing, you should say, okay, Samantha seconded.
Okay, Samantha,
Or
motion, Pamela, second, and
All in
raise your
favor.
hand, raise your hands, all in favor.
And then,
Okay, motion
since
passed.
you can see everybody, that's okay, but let's. Technically, you're supposed to do a roll call if you really wanted to get, but it looks like you can see everybody unless there are other people that are on video.
There are not, according to the participant numbers.
Yeah,
Okay. All right, amended, and so select board updates. What is happening that we should know about?
there's a public hearing tonight.
Yes.
For the planning board, and that'll be for the proposed harbor ordinance revisions relating to piers. I saw that Rebecca submitted the letter that you all worked on.
Good.
One thing that I noticed right at the end is that, it doesn't say, it just says the Camden Conservation Commission without your names. I know that if it's just a small thing, like as a select board member, I sometimes like to know the names. I also thought it was interesting that it was so difficult to find any contact information for the planning board. So it's like,
Yeah, I had to send it.
you don't
by
really know,
Janice.
you don't really know who you're writing to either. Because unlike generally all the boards and committees should have contact information on their pages. So we should probably check to make sure that, to see what the state of affairs is for the Conservation Commission too, just in case anybody would want to get in touch with you all. But
Are there ways to have, like, you know, Camden Conscom, you know, something abbreviated at, you know, camden.maine.gov or whatever the.
yeah, like how the select board has.
Yeah,
TOC,
like-
select board up. I know there's.
I'm just thinking because at some
are
point
ways
there
that they
would
can
be
do that.
turnover and, you know, I don't know that, I'm necessarily comfortable giving my personal email on the town website.
So wait,
I
phone
don't-
number.
How about my phone number? That seems even sketchy.
Yeah, so that would be just maybe a good topic of conversation.
It's not that I'm unwilling to communicate, but it's just one of those like. Personal, you know, how much information do you want to put up there? So.
Right, or have it be something where
And have
the
it be more
chair,
really affiliated with.
sometimes they just put the chairperson, which would then
Still
put
be
you
me.
back in the same situation, but, yeah, that's something we could talk sort of endlessly about that, but, just maybe to say that if anybody wants to provide comments as an individual,
Mhm.
also, at the public hearing, like I can go as a select, I mean, as a as a resident. So just because they're participated via the Conservation Commission, you can also participate as an individual tonight. There is another site plan approval or site plan review, excuse me, that will be coming up that maybe has Conservation Commission overlaps, which is the Springbrook subdivision proposal. And that'll be on, I believe on March 15th.
What, is it an evening meeting?
And I can only imagine, yes, I would assume so. So that is it for me right now in terms of concrete things. Oh, the budget committee will be starting meetings this week. Budget committee is, what the committee that helps us review all of the town budget. So, and really everything that the town does has its roots somewhere in the approved budget. So, it's a good thing for everybody to keep an eye on, and to show up and, submit comments, or just, look over the budget. We'll have about I think it's the next month of meetings, more or less, of budget committee deliberations. And that is a good opportunity, not just to look at, crunching the numbers. But a lot of people get intimidated by budget committee because they think that it's just about people that are good with spreadsheets and figuring out numbers. It's really not that. It's more of like a priorities assessment in a lot of ways. It's really whatever the budget committee ends up wanting it to be. But if it's a very appropriate time to say the town, does the town have enough money allocated to different environmental things like the tree planting, for instance. So anyway, good thing for everybody to pay attention to at least a little bit, and maybe send out an email to the group or something if you see something in the budget that jumps out at you. I have not reviewed the budget yet myself, so.
And those are on Thursday, every Thursday evening?
Yeah.
6 or so, 6 o'clock.
Yes,
Something like that.
I think so.
Every Thursday for the next month or so.
Is there a precedence for the Conservation Commission or any other committee or board to have a subset of funding for special town appropriate, committee appropriate projects? Is there any?
There is, in fact, it was a disagreement about that very issue that caused the mass resignation of the former Conservation Commission
Oh,
members. No, but it's
good,
still
good to know.
Wait, I'm sorry, what caused the mass resignation?
I'm like, oh.
a disagreement about the process for using the Conservation Commission Reserve Fund. And I think a lot of that has been sort of cleared up now with the individuals involved. They formed, most of them formed their own group called Stewardship Education Alliance, that's, C group. But yeah, and I was just talking about this with the Historic Resources Committee a little bit, that has varied over time in terms of like committee budgets. And I think it, like anything, it sort of ebbed and flowed, where it reached a point where it felt like maybe multiple nonprofit organizations, many nonprofit organizations were sort of being run from within the town. So each committee had money, and then they felt that they had the authority to decide what it was used on. And that happened for a few years, and then processes were reviewed, and another select board or town manager would say, no, it's really more appropriate to have general reserve funds that the communities then could request to use. And the question of who has the authority to spend from the reserve fund, it was a very minor issue. It was paying for the intern that did a really valuable stormwater assessment, actually. And it was $6,000 for the year, and I think $3,000 was paid for. It was from the Conservation Commission Reserve, given that the intern had been selected and hired by the Conservation Commission on the recommendation of the Conservation Commission. But they felt that they wanted to use that money for something else, and that the intern should have been the town budget. And we can end up spending a lot of time on that sort of thing, when it's more appropriate, I think, if the committees say, we believe that the town should allocate more funding to X, Y, or Z, and make a general budget request, and then let the town manager and select board and department heads figure out where that would go. So if you have things that you want to do, and really the tree stuff is a really huge part of that.
Well, that's what
Signs too.
That's what I was just thinking.
Yeah.
I was like, do we need to, is this the time to help
That's what we did.
advocate for
That's what we
the
did.
signs, or, like you need,
Yeah, so Dave,
Ten
Dave's
trees
been
or-
listening and decide,
you
right, some of that's in the budget.
Right, if it's something easy, I just add it to my budget.
Okay.
If it's something big,
yeah,
I want double tree work. Probably more.
come in and pitch, so to speak.
Mhm.
Yep, okay.
You've got two hands raised.
Oh,
Yep, I
Samantha, you
see.
go.
No, you were first. You go ahead.
I had two parts, thanks. One is in response to, not really response, but just to add on to Allison's, is the planning board. One, just a general, just take a step back. Just wanted to thank everyone, and I really appreciate everyone on the last one, getting this letter together, but also on the last select board meeting. Huge kudos to Barb for stepping up and saying something. And it's not easy to speak in public. And so I just want to recognize that and honor that people really did step up and are speaking for, I understand, are speaking for a lot more than ourselves. Are speaking for a community that, might not be aware of when the meetings are, or so hopefully tonight is somewhat different. But just wanted to also thank people for the letter and ask a question to Allison. And, being that we submitted the letter to the planning board, is it appropriate, like, for us as a representative to read the letter tonight, or is that redundant, or should we speak tonight? How do we, I guess, how do we have the greatest level of impact so that we're not, just overlooked, I guess?
yeah, so that's an important thing, because what's different a little bit about public hearings and planning board meetings is that they, certainly this one is like a semi-judicial proceeding. And so it's all about, what is in the record, and it's like establishing a record. And the planning board itself, you'll notice they'll be really clear about that, because all of this ends up being, especially when they end up doing site plan review and things like that, it's subject to appeals, and they have to establish that things are in the record. And so sometimes it's always good if you're going to submit comments ahead of time rather than being there in person. And people know they can't be there in person, they'll often request that it be read into the record, is a common thing. And so in this case, the best thing to do is always to be present and to say, we submitted this earlier, but we want, on behalf of the Conservation Commission, I'd like to read this into the record. The Conservation Commission could authorize a specific person to do that. And then that also frees you up. If anybody wants to speak as, an individual, they can do that in addition. But yeah, always good to actually read it. You'll see a lot of people sometimes will read something into the record, and then you'll see them hand a paper copy to the planning board members. So yeah, definitely fine and preferable to make sure that gets into the official record.
So I am remote, and I do plan to attend. I would be happy to read this into the record remotely, but I'm wondering if there's someone else that would like to do that. And the reason I ask is not that I wouldn't, I am willing and will happily do it, but I also have shared our letter with the Historic Resources Committee, and they would like to, the consensus was that they would like me to, as the chair of that committee, to add to the Historic Resources Committee and say, here, what they wanted me to say, I would like to add that the Historic Resource Committee has also been discussing the Harbor Committee's recommendations and has discussed concerns about the geologic and aesthetic alterations of our coastline from the construction of private piers. And then maybe say, we request, similar to the Conservation Commission, we request more time. I'm still kind of building that out, but I do plan to speak about that for Historic Resources. There are other areas, the question is this applicable to Historic Resources? BD has been so kind to kind of draw back on prior, I'd say, land use decisions that Historic Resources did have commentary towards. And so it is relevant, I believe, to them based on the past to make a comment and support the Conservation Commission. So my thought is that I think it would be a great impact to have kind of two people so that we kind of have a 1-2, great. But is there anyone? If not, I'll read, but, just wanted to throw that out there.
I can't. I'm gonna I'm gonna watch over YouTube driving my kids around. I just won't be able to it would be distracting for me to do it.
Well, I plan to be there, but I was hoping if it'd be great, I'd rather not read things because I just get so nervous, but I can be there and pass out the letter, in person.
That's great. If you
goes on record.
Yeah.
Would that help?
Yeah.
I mean, it will be in the record as a written document, and they are legally required to review the record, right? So it's not like we have to read it at the meeting.
It's definitely better.
No, you should read it at the meeting. You should read it at the meeting because then it is required to be part of the public record. So the question is who plans to, I think we should just do a roll call, like let's go around. We'll start with me because I'm yammering. I cannot be there. I have a monthly meeting that overlaps with this particular, so I'm already obligated a year out, for where I need to be tonight. So I cannot attend and will definitely be leaning in on someone. And at the moment, it might be you, to stand in for us, but.
Yeah, I can be there physically as well, and I'm like Barb, I get very nervous speaking in public, but I wouldn't mind reading the letter into record. I just don't feel very comfortable being responsible for them advocating anything else on our behalf. I think, if there are additional comments or anything or questions,
They won't ask questions.
okay.
That's a nice thing. It doesn't turn into a Q&A. You're just literally reading the letter, right? And it becomes a part of the record, but it's public comment, right? Yeah, so you won't have to answer questions from the panel or anything.
Okay, I wouldn't think, I would, yeah.
They're not allowed to.
I don't think it's.
And the select board meetings, they are really not into that. Once in a while, the planning board is a little bit more fun loving, but yeah, it's really better just to, if you were to answer questions or comment, it would be sort of as an individual and could easily say that you aren't here to speak extemporaneously for the Conservation Commission, but to read that into the record.
Yeah, I mean, you could just say, I could take that question back to the Conservation Commission and get back to you after our next meeting, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, they won't, I would be very surprised if they.
Yeah, I don't think they would. Can
Okay,
I have
so-
my hand raised too? It's about this. So Pamela, are you going to, will you read it on our behalf tonight?
Sure,
Thank you.
yeah. Barb, you're gonna be there?
Can like
Yeah.
hold her up.
Yeah, exactly.
My hand raise was around the letter not having our names on it, because I noticed that too, and I should have brought it up and I just didn't think to. First of all, again, Will, thank you for taking the time and initiative to draft that. I'm a much better editor than I am drafter, so I'm happy to team up on things like this, but I'm just so glad that you put something out there and it was really well thought out. And I think we got a great product with everybody's feedback. I'm wondering if it would be worth, if everyone would agree to it, which I think you would, because you voted in favor of the letter. Should we put our names on the letter that is handed out tonight and resubmit it to them? Because I do think that our names should be on it, and I would be proud to have my name on that letter.
That's totally fine. I just sort of took it as what it was.
That sounds great. It's for an action. Do you want me to put the names and resend it to Barb for you to print, or? Yeah, okay.
Okay. Yes.
And then,
One thing, if you were gonna get really detailed about the letter that I should have, I was didn't want to get too involved in the drafting of the letter, because I think it's important that it's coming from you and I'm really just the liaison. But procedurally, what you're asking the planning board to do is they don't have the authority to extend the moratorium. Only the select board can extend the moratorium. They have the authority to recommend ordinance amendments to the select board. Then the select board would put those out to on the ballot. What happens if something, we have extended the moratoriums, both of them, but what happens if new ordinance language is approved before the moratorium runs out, the new ordinance supersedes the moratorium. So what you're asking them to do is to take more time to review and recommend ordinance changes. Which
An important
is very much like the result is very much this, extending it
Makes
results
sense.
in extending the moratorium, but it's just small.
so it'd be fair to say that we recommend more time, the planning board allocate more time to review and establish our ordinance change or changes to our ordinance.
Yeah,
Yeah, but then it's after, we're saying after some sort of more comprehensive planning process. So I would say to withhold recommending new peer ordinances until such time as a comprehensive planning process has been conducted. And that's what we're asking them to do.
Right.
Which also,
yeah, and whether you want to get into comprehensive planning process or just a little more time, or because really what I think what the Conservation Commission initially said was that there was maybe no public benefit or no conservation benefit to having more private residential piers. And so all of the need to make all of these recommendations would go away if they first asked voters if they wanted to prohibit new piers, new residential piers in the outer and coastal harbors, which is what the planning board had recommended back in 2015.
Mhm.
So you don't need to do the comprehensive planning process about piers if, although there would still be some things about like what happens when people's piers fall down and things like that, but anyway, just really what you're asking them to do is not just go forward with
The
only these
Harbor
minor
Committee's
revisions.
proposal, right?
Yeah, further review, exactly.
And then but I don't want to take away from this, but I did have a second, is there anything else, this is so important, is there anything else that we should chat about with relating to tonight's meeting? Okay.
I think you got it covered.
For the budget, I am appointed to the budget committee, and I have printed out the budget yesterday, and I've started to review it. And he's humbly staying quiet, but Dave has really set the path from a budget perspective for our success this year. I don't know the details of behind, but I'll just give you guys a quick glance of from last year, our budget for the tree program. So last year, 20 was 53. Or Dave, did we get it? It looks like it's 53,000 again for the tree program, but it's gone up from 2022.
He
But we
stepped out of the river first.
Anyway,
so-
we have there's an allocation for a tree program. There's also an allocation, I think. Streets and sidewalks is a significant increase from last year. So if there's any questions, as I learn more, I'll share that with you all on what's in the budget. But if there's any questions that you have as a committee, don't hesitate to ask. I'm new to this process too, so I'm sure I'll have questions as well. But it does look like we have some budget for projects this year. I don't see like street signs or anything like that, but I'm sure that's probably built into what Dave, I'm sure Dave has detail on that. Maybe it's in the tree program, who knows? But
He did indicate that it was in fact worked into his department budget. So I don't know the exact number, but we will definitely get some of the signage up this year.
Yeah.
So that is good to know.
yeah, streets and sidewalks is a big increase, so probably in there somewhere. But anyway, it seems like Dave has definitely been our advocate from a budget perspective.
Yep.
Yes. And I have a question for you, Will. In the past couple of years, I was on the budget committee, and there was a line item in one of the categories, and I know that booklet is huge, but there was a Conservation Commission line item. And it had money in it. The first year I was doing it a couple of years ago, there was money in it, the budget, and then it was a zero. And I remember asking about that, and that's when, I guess when the other Conservation Commission disbanded, and that's why there was no money there. But I wonder about that, like what that money was allocated under. Do you know, Allison? Or there was a specific line item in the budget for the Conservation Commission.
I've
Yeah.
seen it for the historic resources recently, just because I kept an eye out because we did historic resources requested budget. So I absolutely believe it. I just haven't spent enough time with the.
Yeah, no, it's.
Two things, so, in the past, sometimes it's been like, if there are specific publications or the Historic Resources Committee had these, historic walking tour maps that they wanted money for printing, things like that. They were very concrete.
Kind of one and
Yeah.
done type
Yeah.
of scenarios.
So, which is different from like road signs where, it's all a gray area. But those were things that kind of didn't involve any town staff. But then it happens differently in different years. Sometimes if there's no path to success, like working through town staff. I think that's what's happened before, like the Conservation Commission is gonna plant 12 trees and we need this money, and it's just completely separate because there hasn't been a feeling that that was gonna be accomplished by working as volunteers alongside a department head.
Pamela, I found it. It's under planning, code enforcement, community development, and assessing tab. And you're right, in 2020, we had Conservation Commission was allocated $127 or had, spent $127. But since then, 21 going forward, there's been no activity in that account. So, and we're not budgeting there's no Conservation Commission specific allocation in this budget. It seems like the tree program and likewise might be reflected in, public works. But
I mean, paying dues, we wanted to be, sometimes wanting to be a member of the Conservation Commission Association or whatever that was called. We don't encounter any problems becoming a member of it because the town just took it on in their memberships line or whatever. And I tend to think that's
I think
the
it's
right way to go.
Yeah.
Because otherwise it turns into like, you have to plan years ahead and you just want to be a member of some, partnership organization.
I
it
mean,
seems to be taken care of.
anecdotally, we allocated an allowance of 20,000 for historic resources. That's a very bullish, allocation for what they would need. It's driven a lot by archiving software, but that's not going to be something we would be purchasing. So my thought is that if we did want Conservation Commission allocation, maybe I could advocate to grab some from the historic resources bucket to the conservation bucket. Should we want to have 1,000 or 2,000 in that bucket?
I don't think we need.
I wouldn't recommend getting involved at that level because it's frustrating for town staff. And my guess is I would be very surprised if I saw the historic resources, that amount in the town manager's recommended budget. Because you guys submitted something, but I don't think it was.
It's in it. There's 20, Audra put 20,000 for historic resources in the budget.
That is very surprising.
Over time, the committee will definitely use it, but for this certain calendar year, I could see it being like 10 to 15. There's some significant projects going there, but I can see how, in the budget committee meeting, that's going to be pulled down from 20 to something else. But I still think that there's some allocation there. Should the Conservation Commission want their additional purse, like their own purse? I think it's important for the Conservation Commission to establish we are spending money. There is funds to spend in what we're doing. So I think it's important that we do have a balance in the budget.
I think that.
Despite what happens with historic resources.
I see what you're trying to do, Will, but it's just been really problematic in the past. And I don't see that there's any record of the things that the Conservation Commission has wanted to do. I don't see that there have been any barriers without really should be the way the budget process works and the way the town works is planning ahead. So if there are specific things that the Conservation Commission knows we are going to need money for, that the town needs money for, then those things should be recommended. We shouldn't be requesting like a bank to pull from when we think of something later.
No, I'm not suggesting that, Allison. We know we could sit here and speak to the certain, items. I can itemize a list of what we'd be spending on this year, which is exactly what we did with historic resources. And I do believe that and it's great to know that there's no limitations or no restrictions for us to get things done, but it's not clerically, it's not showing as though we're being active in that, at least from a budgetary standpoint. So we think about priorities and, but what the role of the budget committee, it from a financial and it should be reflected in the budget in this way. Now I'm not it's anyway, and I'll advocate for me personally in the budget committee, as my role, there's this is showing, to Pamela's point, that the Conservation Commission has no financial activity, which is not true. I mean, that's just not true. And so, you know, I think it would have been better represented if, you know, the tree program, yes, but there's things outside of the tree program that could be represented in this that might be commingled into that. So I understand and hear you that it's a clerical, you know, time for an employee of the town to, and it's probably not fun and it's timely, but it's also, as you're looking at it, it's also not accurate.
No, that's not what I'm saying, Will. What I'm saying is that the committees are supposed to provide recommendations to the select board and the town manager on the things that the town does and where spending should happen, and on many projects that the town is spending money on or will spend money on. But the activity level of the Conservation Commission or any of the committees isn't measured by the amount of money that you spend. You provide recommendations on the spending of money, but really in terms of maintaining like a record and a plan for what the town is going to spend money on, you want to be able to look at the individual areas and think about it like programmatically, so that you can say, well, the town spent this amount of money on trees this year and this amount next year. And this, when you start to pull, or signage, roadside, like signage, that kind of stuff, if you just make it within the Conservation Commission budget, it really becomes lost as part of the town record. In a lot of ways, we want to be influencing spending, but not having our own budget. That's a nonprofit organization. I mean, I would, if we want an entity that's going to have like a major budget, I think that's where it makes sense and made sense for the other people that wanted to be raising money. For instance, the last Conservation Commission, they were starting to raise a lot of money, and then, or some money, and then having it in this pool and then spending from there. And that's where it's, you really want to be influencing the town budget, not creating a new budget is.
Well, I mean, there's certain areas, you know, I agree with you, Allison. I think there's like with the tree program, it's great to advocate. There's a certain line for the tree program, but what about creating a 3D model for Maguntacook River's watershed? I mean, how are we going to finance that? Because that's going to cost money.
That's funded in the.
Okay, so that's funded through Maguntacook. So, you know, but the point being is there's some, I think we went through this practice, but we failed to kind of think about, we never recommended anything to the select board or the budget committee. And so it makes sense that there's nothing here, you know, in our, you know, or if we recommended it through Dave, where it's in the street tree. But maybe.
I think you're being influenced a little bit by what you just saw happen with the Historic Resources Committee, which is highly unusual. And I think that Audra would have done that because they are undertaking sort of a major endeavor with Curtis Island. And
it's totally separate. Curtis Island is totally separate than the 20,000. The 50,000 for the roof has its own account. Just so you know, the 20,000 has nothing to do with Curtis.
I don't know. There's no history of committees having that kind of a budget. And I mean, you're welcome to advocate for it, but I just think it's going to devote, like take the conversation in just going to use up energy, and that really the conversation should be about specific things that you're concerned might not be fully funded within the town budget. So broad things that the town should be putting money toward. If it's going to be training related, you could say, you know, I really like to see that that training area of the town budget increase, because we think that a lot of committee members would like to have more training, and that might cost money. Or finding things like that the Conservation Commission can, we really do try to encourage people to get involved in the overall budget process and say, you know, this is what the town needs. Like just right now, just saying we need more of a bucket, just focus on like individual things that you could see that should be added to the budget, I would say for this year.
So what you're suggesting is that there shouldn't be a conservation commission bucket. There shouldn't be a historic resources bucket. There's just basically,
It can be allocated in a different, it can be, it's not that we are not impactful, but remember that we are not paid employees and we are not on a specific, and we are not in that way.
Like,
don't
I
have
don't
the
think
same
that, I'm not, like, I don't need a,
responsibilities.
I don't need a reminder to let me know I'm not paid by the town. But I'll learn more. I don't think I need to hijack more time about our budget, but from, if there's any questions on the process, maybe I'm not the best person to ask because I'm new to the budget committee, but I'll definitely be reporting back what I learned to you all about our efforts.
Pamela's been on the budget committee. She's trying to stay quiet, but,
No, it's good to advocate for things, Will, I think, last year, when I knew Dave was gonna present, a budget for the trees, for the street trees, and that it was a new part of his budget. I was sitting there waiting to nervously, of course, try to advocate for it in case there were budget committee members that were going, what do we want to spend money on street trees for? But Dave did such a great job presenting the whole thing, that there was no problem whatsoever. The budget committee was like, yeah, that sounds great. That's great. So, but I think, if you're prepared to sort of maybe step up and advocate if there are questions or people, questioning why there's certain funds allocated in the budget, that we want to see allocated, then that's kind of what I feel like we do, because those meetings can go on and on and on. And I get the feeling that a lot of department heads don't really want you to start questioning. Not so much not questioning details, but just starting policy discussions around the budget. That was my feeling, I think, that there were certain questions that were definitely and they were all the department heads are totally willing to respond and answer questions, about community policing or whatever else, electric fire, trucks or whatever else people have questions about. But they don't generally get, broaden out into big policy discussions.
That's not really the forum for it.
Right, yeah.
We're really there to talk about the presented budget, how you arrived at the budget, what are the things that contribute to the budget, what are the things that are contributing to things that you're gonna be doing. If it's a policy issue, then it should be it's really directed at the town manager, who then presents it to the select board.
Yeah,
Because they're the ones that
right,
take care of the policy stuff.
yeah.
We do the operational stuff.
Dave, when I'm looking at the budget now, it looks like for the tree program, there's a town manager has budgeted 53,000, which was the same as last year.
Yeah.
Is that consistent with what you were proposed, or what makes up?
There was no change, so I think we had estimated, I think it's like $20,000 for trees. The other part is for tree maintenance, so it's pruning trees, believe it or not, the tree removal piece is like a huge component of that budget line. And that seems to be working out pretty good right now. Did you guys get the email that I sent?
I just saw it.
I just sent it to you, and that is, I took out the numbers, the pricing, because I just didn't want to be throwing the pricing around, but that is, the order I had just placed for the trees for this year. And I can't remember, I think there's 58, is there 58 trees? Maybe, yeah, if you look there. And those are based off of the species recommended by, I think, Beatty and Rebecca and you also. So, most of them are native. I threw in a couple extra in there, only just to kind of broaden it out, but those came up to $18,000.
Is that from Plants Unlimited again?
It is, only because it's just, they're gonna take care of them as we plant them. So they're gonna put them in like a holding area for us and water them and take care of them, which is a big, you know, that's a big help having that done. Because then we can focus on just watering the new ones. We don't have to worry so much about taking care of the ones we haven't planted. And then if something happens and they die, you know, we're not kind of totally responsible for them at that point. Yeah, so.
That's great.
Did you see that? I'm printing out the list right now. Just to give everybody here, but, it's a really nice list with a lot of different species in it that are a lot of different, heights in terms of how big they get.
Yeah.
So we got some good underwire ones, some good shade trees. They're all pretty much indigenous or native, except for, I think I picked out a tulip tree. That's about tulip
They're
trees.
considered American native anyways.
Okay. But there was some species in there I had never really thought of. Like the mussel tree and the black gum, and those will actually help, I think. Yeah.
That black gum
And
is beautiful.
Dave, for the, I noticed there's a significant increase in streets and sidewalks. I'm sure that's a much bigger project that I'm not privy to, but do you think that we have budget in to purchase our street signs? McGuntacook
Oh,
Water.
yeah, we're covered. Yeah.
Okay.
I'm probably gonna buy those in this year's budget. The
Okay,
one that's not yet over.
okay,
If you guys give me the proof before July 1st, I'm gonna put them in this budget we are currently in.
okay.
And there's a little bit of other stuff in there too, like there's some plants that were gonna be planted and some kind of landscaping type of work gonna be done at the public landing. I also included in there, and so I've covered all those things.
Thank you.
Yeah.
This is actually a great segue if you want to add anything else to the street tree planting or watering. So watering piece, is there any movement on that? I know that Brian was going to take on a piece that may or may not have happened yet.
You know, I met with the garden club. I mean, all they really seem to really be interested in is trying to get us to do the watering of the flowers. And, you know, we can't take on watering the flowers and the trees. I mean, they have the resources to do it. And I think that, we're gonna kind of try to stay away from that piece, because we're rebuilding like a bunch of sidewalk. We're doing Pearl Street this year. We're gonna be redoing like a lot of the public landing in preparation for the new wharf. We're gonna be doing some landscaping down there. We're gonna be planting all these 58 trees. We've got a full docket already, along with watering them. I don't see us being able to, oh, thank you.
I thought there was more people.
Well, they're on there.
They're all,
Okay.
they're all zooming.
You're welcome.
So I guess no movement with the garden club, and no movement in terms of trying to get somebody else to do the watering or volunteers internally. I think what we're just gonna do, I did hire a high school student who's gonna be working for me through the summer. He's getting ready to go to college, but he's gonna be probably one of the people I'm gonna probably tap to do a lot of the watering on the weekends. And you know, I have the resources to water the trees that we plant, even though it's probably gonna be up to 100 trees. We do a trash run 3 days a week in the summertime. And really, those people, it's just a good transition from going from picking the trash up to watering the trees. And I can shift their schedule and come in a little early, and it just works out well. I think that I know it's done. And you know, and I don't have to try and organize volunteers. I might run into a pinch during the warm weather time when I might need some volunteers to help. But I think the volunteers could be more helpful in terms of visiting the tree locations, maybe staking them off and straightening them out and doing those kinds of
Refilling
things.
the water bags.
Yeah,
burning
maybe
those
refilling,
places.
right, maybe putting the water bags up, refilling those, that kind of stuff. And that's the other thing, we're gonna buy the water bags, which was a good idea. And that'll help out a lot with the warmer parts of the year. So I'm babbling at this point about it, but no progress is made. Status quo, we're gonna water our own trees. I think it's easier that way. If something comes up and we can continue to look at this, we have a better idea of different approach to it. I'm all ears, but I haven't made any progress with changing things.
That's all right. No, Samantha.
What is the status, David, on figuring out where the trees are going this summer? Do you have the locations or how are you determining that?
Yeah, so we have the app and we have a lot of locations on there. We're gonna need the halo. We're gonna need some halo work, meaning checking with the people
Okay,
to make sure they're okay with us planting these trees. But we have a huge backlog of people wanting trees already.
Woohoo.
So I don't see it being an issue. It's just, let's not take our foot off the pedal and going to those places we've identified and talking to the people that live there and then circling that as a, you know, a qualified location, putting in the contact information, because that really helps. Because I can look at that and like in 10 minutes, I can say, hey, go do these 5 trees.
Right.
You know, it's just,
Especially when you've already got the permission. it's
I've got
just
the
like-
permission and it
Yeah.
just takes all the hurt right out of it.
Mhm.
And
And then
it-
they come home and they're like, woohoo, there's a tree.
Right, exactly. It works
It's a
out
nice
really
surprise.
well. And you know, a lot of these trees are gonna be able to be hand dug. The size of the root ball, so we don't even need to dig sink. So I can just be like, you know, go do these.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Any other questions about the street trees? I think that's great. It's awesome to have a backlog and to know that we have this many, you know, this much variety in trees coming in.
What'd you think of
That's a good-
What'd you think of
it's
the
a good-
list?
I love it.
Is it pretty good, huh?
So I don't know if you emailed it to everyone, but
Yeah, I did.
it's
It's,
very diverse. It's really interesting. There are a lot of natives. It's not exclusively so, which is totally fine,
Mhm.
but it strikes a really lovely balance.
I thought so.
And I love it.
Yeah.
Great.
I'm glad you guys are happy with picking the trees, because that can always get controversial, I guess, because people
We do have
are,
opinions.
oh, people get so, you know, decisive about, you know, which trees you pick, but I think this is a good mix, and again, you guys help me again with this, but make it easy. If I'd have just picked a bunch of trees, then it would have been a lot more difficult, I think, so the way we did this worked out well. The only other, I'm working on the Tree City USA application with Nancy, putting together all the information. So if you all have worked your time, if you could give me an email thinking, and this is just an estimate, what you feel like you put into for time on the app, anything associated with the trees, just, you know, say volunteer, Conservation Commission member, or, you know, resident. I've worked, estimated this many hours, and then when you name, I'll put that into the application and we'll count that as our time. That would be helpful.
Have you spoken with Dee Dee about that at all, Dave? Because she actually asked
I think she is,
street tree volunteers for our
I saw an email, but I don't know where that information is going. I haven't talked with anybody here about it, so I figured if you want to, I'm compiling this for Nancy.
Mhm.
So if she has duplicate stuff, she probably will be able to sort through that. I just want to make sure I capture all of it. And that's got to be done by the end of this month. So I need it like in the next week.
Okay, the other 2 department or committee updates is on stormwater mapping, which I'm guessing not many of us have done, but I wanted to make sure that we're acknowledging it. I like to note, I know you're the water girl and you're dealing with all the storm drains, but the winter is a surprisingly good time of year to see which catch basins, drainage ditches, road pitches. It's, you can see a lot of ice and water melting flows. It's a very, you actually can sometimes see more this time of year than not. I've been taking photos. I haven't shared with anyone, but I'm out for a walk, or, you know, I don't stop when I'm running, but I certainly, when I go for a walk, I've been taking pictures all around town of the winter time, storm drain and catchments, and I'm sure you're aware of many of them, but I think they're just illustrative, you know, even from my district standpoint to talk, without giving away locations and such, to talk about, the importance of vegetative buffers behind to absorb some of that flow, or, you know, why you want that parabolic shape and not that V shape in terms of drain, etc. So we might be able to, we'll be able to get out and do more mapping hopefully this year and improve that tool for the town.
Just to add to that, we probably use more sand than we have in the past 3 years this year, and I just got a call from the person that cleans the catch basins for us. He's gonna go out and kind of test different locations.
Oh.
We have our first baseline year.
Yep.
Compare it to. So we'll know those areas where, of course, it's always at the end of the hills and things like that,
Oh,
where you
yeah.
get the most of it. But just to give you an idea what that costs, I think it's like almost $60,000 a year to clean all the catch basins in town.
Yeah.
And that's under stormwater well, if you look at it in the line item. Yeah, so just, it seems like it's a big number, but 60,000 of it is just for cleaning. To
Yeah, and a
maintain-
lot of that could be mitigated again with vegetation and different contouring, and, you know, none of which is any one inherent person's, but it's just land use over time, or what was best practices at that point and has been maintained because that it's still working, or, you know, so it's interesting to see what's happening around and where we could improve.
There was I took part in a workshop a little while ago, and I'll get the name of it for you, but there was a lot of people that are involved with stormwater, stormwater improvements, green infrastructure. And it was done by an intern from the University of Maine, and also, you remember the name of that workshop?
The one that Nathan Robbins.
Yeah. Anyway, they're working with the legislature to help with the DEP. One of the things I requested was that, you know, they had some type of template or boilerplate type of thing where if somebody wanted to put in like a natural system or a rain garden or any of these things, there was like a standard blueprint or something to use. So that we could just plug and play, because that's one of the big problems is that, you know, nobody's really willing to kind of say, all right, this is how you do it. You know, you can hire an engineer, and it's really not, it's just not something people around here are doing. So I said, if you could provide us with some kind of like pool or template to use to do these things that says, you know, this much gravel, this much this much that, and this big an area, depending on the flow, and it would be helpful. And they were gonna work on doing that, providing us with that. And then also they were talking about, one of the other things that came up is that if you're a community that participates in these kinds of things, and you enhance your ordinances to protect, you know, brooks, rivers and streams and green infrastructure, there'll be more grant opportunity for these types of infrastructure improvements. So there was a lot that kind of came out of it. I don't know if it'll ever fabricate into anything, but it was good discussion. There was a lot of smart people on there that talked about doing the same thing. So.
Is there anything, has anybody been attending or following the Megunticook River Citizens Advocacy Group or the water or what advisory? I know, it's like, I'm like, there's so many acronyms, and I'm like, wait, I'm lost. Advisory Committee Council, something or other. Is there any update or information to share on that?
Oh, that's on YouTube, but they did have a really good speaker the other day that I am meaning to watch, but a bunch of people told me to watch it. Nate Gray from the Department of Marine Resources spoke. And yeah, just the town YouTube channel.
I watched it. It was really, really interesting. Highly recommended.
Okay, good. Good.
A lot of good questions too.
So I think we're on to projects. Wanted to let you guys know that the community resilience training that's part of this NOAA funding and Gulf of Maine Research Institute. It's this collaborative, multifaceted effort. Shenley is sort of representing the town at large. I met with her and Jeremy on a few issues, and they want other participants from town boards or committees or member or residents at large. I agreed to both represent the Conservation Commission and sort of at large, and that we are going to I'll be attending what they call a planning forward training on April 7th from 10 to 3. And then there will be another training called Introduction to Sea Level Rise. It's supposed to be this month, but they don't have the date, time, or location yet. So they like to do things a little last minute. But I have a fairly flexible schedule for March, so I'm hoping to be able to attend that as well. I certainly, as soon as I know the dates, will send it out to you. And I have a one-pager that gives a little bit more information. I don't know if that was really helpful for you. Samantha asked a few more questions. It's really kind of coalescing, but the goal is really to get both the networking opportunity for the Mid-Coast region with municipalities, as well as to train both committee members, so volunteers, as well as municipal employees in how to best do outreach and collaboration with climate change action in your town. So hopefully that will be worth the effort. So the next on the list is watershed signs. Does anybody have a sign they want to pop up on their screen and show me, or are we kind of at the same place, or? Will, you're not, you're muted.
I can share the sign. Where is it? I think I emailed it to you guys. But maybe we talk about what Barb sent out first versus the locations, and while I try to bring it up, but
Oh, yeah.
Barb's
Okay.
done a lot of work on specific locations and quantities and stuff like that.
Look at you with your lat launch. Ooh, good job. Yep. Yeah, we can look at the locations. So the locations, I'll just kind of quickly go through Route 52, north and south. Beaucaire, if I'm saying it right, Ave, east and west. And then there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 Washington Street locations. Because there's obviously a lot of crossings
You
and
guys aren't
access.
messing around. Wow, how many are we up to right now?
Hang on just a second.
Whoa.
I got 2 on Mechanic Street, north-south. Well, they're, it sounds like a lot, but they're the front and back, they're location wise, it's,
I'm good with it. I'm just
And
like,
then
I was surprised that there's that many.
so how many signs was it total? 15 signs.
Oh, that's not.
Is there one on John Street anywhere?
John Street did not make the list as yet. Oh, but is John Street?
These were just suggestions, so it's just a starting point.
So I'd like to make a pitch for this one because someone goes out of that 4-way stop between Simonton and John.
Yeah.
So that right
Is that
there.
the Nagunta or is that the?
What a good question. It depends on which side of the intersection.
That's what I was gonna ask, where are we on the dividing line? Because it seems.
So everything on one side of that road goes, for the most part, one direction. And so if you're at the Four Corners,
That's what I would do.
one way is the Goose River watershed and one way is McGonagall. So it's just a
Ooh.
nice
There's a conversation starter in the car.
Right,
Yeah.
yeah.
Wait a minute.
Right. It could be, I don't know,
So would there be 2 signs there?
if we want to get into the Goose River too, then, I
Well-
mean, yes, of course, that's what I advocate for, that yes, over here, be like, "No, we can't get to the watershed," but,
But if we were doing just the McGonagall River watershed, there'd be 2 signs, right?
No, it'd be one there.
do you want to, you're now leaving, am I gonna River watershed, or, so,
Will there only be one or?
really only one on the, it would be, I guess, actually on Simonton Road between Mechanic and John Street, that section of, that little section of Simonton that's right?
Yep.
So not the part of Simonton that goes off of John Street towards Rockport, the little section that between Mechanic and John.
The line would be like right in the middle, so. Yeah,
So we
you-
put it on the other side.
yeah, like you were. It's,
You're entering, is that what's, because, oh, yeah.
Or leaving,
It
or-
says-
you've entered the McGonagall, yeah.
Yeah.
It's right at the, the grade goes this way one way, and so it's, right in the middle where you,
Should it say, I mean, I'm not saying that should be this, but from what I remember, it says you are entering. Is just entering enough?
I think entering isn't, I like, I'm less is more, less words,
Okay,
more succinct.
I think I've seen it both ways, so I'm,
The only thing I
Okay. Go Will.
haven't, the only thing I haven't done is send it to Allison to try to, and I know Allison's been busy with a bunch of other things to round out the top of the
Oh,
okay.
I thought you were gonna put a pelican in there too, or something like that. No?
No.
No?
Oh, we got the wind in the.
Yeah.
No, I think it's good. I like it.
The fish, wasn't there a fish?
Okay.
There's fish.
All right.
on Front
let's see.
Street. I mean. on
All right, well,
I mean, that fish isn't gonna live much longer at the loon.
I'm starting like big.
Is it possible still to make, to make McGonagall River watershed larger, a larger font? Or entering like capital E, small n t? Does
Oh,
that-
you mean, so it's not all
Yes.
capital letters?
So the McGonagall River is,
Or
so that's
bolder?
bigger,
Yeah,
the most prominent.
yeah.
Okay, so sorry, I just want to make sure I'm understanding. So it's not that, are you okay with the all caps?
For McGonagall River watershed, yes,
Okay, you just
Um,
want the McGonagall River to be bold?
Could
yeah.
be like bolder and a little bigger, and maybe you could make the font bigger, but the character spacing smaller, possibly in order to accommodate it.
I might have to change the font, so I'll just, I can play around with that. It should be an easy change. I'll play around with the lettering and the font, and then I'll just send out maybe a few options.
Not to be too complicating, but could the orientation of this be landscaped, which provides more room for lettering? I mean, it's not like the town's gonna print it out on 8x10 paper, right? It could be a different shape, the actual.
Yeah.
Sign.
I think for putting the sign on a signpost, it might cause problems.
Got it.
You know what I mean? Because it'll be,
There's a reason that the standard. is usually
standard,
portrait
yeah.
mode Because of
Yeah.
that's like a speed limit sign size, just so you.
the
Got it.
seesaw effect of landscape mode. Dave's really good at making signs straight and
Oh, yeah,
pointing out the problems in other people's signs.
it's an OCD thing with, every
I do.
year we plow snow up against the signs and make them all crooked again, and then I have to drive around and call people and say, straighten this sign, straighten that sign.
If you see a crooked sign, you can send them an email.
Yeah,
Okay.
that'll really help me, that'll help my mental health, just so you know. I'm struggling with this already, and I need more reminders of crooked signs, I really do.
So are we okay with the shrubs, the new, so I guess the additions from last time were the shrubs in the front, in the foreground, and then,
Are those tulips like?
I was
okay to be
gonna say the
Yeah, I
tulips,
mean, I would put calla lily, or even just make the pink purple if you can.
I
just
would
to
make
it
it
look like a
purple.
calla
Yeah,
lily,
yeah, no,
you know,
or
or a,
an iris,
yeah.
an iris.
Yeah, iris, that'd be better.
Blue iris.
I get
Blue.
so fussy about the plants.
Yeah, like a darker blue, only because, Will, those are like the ones that are planted there, those would be like a, once you plant in a garden.
Yeah, so if you could actually find iris and put iris in both of those locations, that would actually be something that would be
Yeah.
along the river and
Right, I
appropriate.
wasn't gonna say anything, but
Oh, I was. I can't help myself.
that's your sign.
It's just.
I just didn't know if somebody was gonna be like, oh, that's invasive.
No,
Well,
if it
you're-
was a yellow iris, it would be invasive, but it is not.
Well,
the
you're a
two
good sport.
not Go,
So
they
the-
don't-
the-
they won't
the bush-
survive.
The bush in front of the yellow, should that stay? Like, should that go too?
No, that should go, and then it should stay.
That's
Keep it.
fine.
Okay, so just put a blue iris in place of both flowers.
Perfect,
Yeah, and that'll take care of it, because that'll be
And
a
that's
native
perfect.
river stream species.
exactly.
You can make it a cardinal flower too, if you like.
A cardinal flower?
Yeah, yeah,
It's red,
it's red.
it's red and they're
spiky,
really nice, and
But we don't need to get that fussy. Come
No,
on now, they'll-
blue will
they'll
be
have-
good.
they'll
Blue will
have
take.
Iris, so.
Well, I'll see what they have. I'll see what's there and I'll just search blue iris. If not, I'll search cardinal flower.
Blue
Right.
iris should work in that would be a sort of a standard that would work.
A red cardinal flower is like a striking red. When you see it, you're like, wow.
Now he's getting fancy on you. Let's just keep it simple. It's already, it's good.
I'll send it out with those changes in the font.
By the way, nice job, Will.
I'm excited. I really appreciate the sort of the subcommittees, if you will, efforts to get the
Okay.
locations and the signs done. Oh, Dave is dying to talk.
What about the signs that are gonna say McGonagall River on like Route 1?
Yep, that's next on the list.
Oh, okay, all right. Sorry, I jumped the gun.
That's so next on the list, oh, where'd they all go? Are they still there? Are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, because we can't see you. Now I can see you, but I don't see anybody else.
I just stopped my screen share, so I don't know if that changed.
Not dead, seemingly.
Oh, there you go. Okay. Anywho, so we're trying to move on to the, yes, black and white river,
Yeah, I haven't drawn anything up for that just because it's so simple. Just
you don't need to, right? That's kind of a
I
standard.
think somebody had the actual sign photo, right?
Yeah.
yeah, we
Yeah.
shared that.
You should send it to me so I can have one made.
Yeah, I think I did. I remember do it again though.
And then that's just,
Yeah, I think
not
it's just like a
just, but it's a
standard
list
kind of-
I think it
creation.
looks like a street sign.
It's a basic, the sort of reflective
Right.
white with the black lettering.
I'm gonna
It's-
make it the same way.
I think they're great, just as is.
Weren't we gonna do a picture of the guy putting the flowers up under the sign? Underneath, did we talk about that a little bit?
We
On the
talked,
sign itself, or?
I think we were gonna do it in more of like an article or like pay attention to. Have you noticed the new sign, like, or at least get one up somewhere and then.
Something that says historically, this was always
Right.
here. Yeah, and here's a picture of the guy that's
Yeah,
actually.
but I think that's more of an article that
Okay.
we're happy to
All right.
put together
All
and,
right.
and share as we get
Rather
things
than
moving.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cause we wanna get.
I'm gonna run that by Rodney, but, he doesn't know I took his picture and.
Oh, yep, we better.
But yeah, I mean. Cool. Yeah.
Anything else on the watershed signs or the stream and?
How about, where the river empties into the harbor? Should there be a sign there? Says this is somewhere by the bell or? I'm just,
I mean, by the dam, by the Harbor Park.
yeah, cause people go there and
We
they're
can't do
taking,
anything in Harbor Park without asking for permission, but,
but on our side, on the other side, we can. On the
Oh,
public
the public
landing side.
landing.
I mean, people stand there and look at the river.
They would love to, yeah.
I mean, wouldn't it be nice to say, this is, I mean, I think that deserves a little
That's
bit
actually
more
more
of
of an
a,
interpretive signage.
yes,
Yeah.
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 Yeah,
I mean, what I'd love to see there would be. A map of, this is the outlet of the McGonagall River.
We can do it.
McGonagall River watershed, just like
I think that belongs there. I think that
we
like,
could put it on the railing when they, redo the boardwalk.
Yeah.
yeah,
Little-
we can incorporate it into the fix that we're
Right
doing right
next to the
now.
Don't Be the Duck sign.
Right.
that the Conservation Commission is also responsible for.
Only saying that because, I mean, everybody's here has been to these different nature preserves and things like that. You walk up and there's something there that tells you what it is.
Oh, it's great, even, and even like the dioramas and the maps of the
Yeah.
islands up at the top of Mount Batty, it doesn't matter where you go,
Yeah.
and people really do, I mean, I certainly am totally nature nerd anyway,
Right.
but the tourists, hikers, people who drive up and walk over and stand, take pictures, get back, and they're all taking a look and just doing a little orientation or having a little appreciation. I think it's a great idea.
Not to make busy work here, but should we take an action to like maybe draft something that says, you know, this is the McGonagall River, it starts here and it ends here, maybe, the person that knows everything about this is over there. But I don't
I
wanna,
mean, we already have all those, we have all that.
right, but I mean, do we have like something we could, like a draft of a sign that we could put together and have made to put there? When we
I feel
do-
like there have been so many of the McGuntacook River presentations that included that kind of material that could be,
Yeah, I think we just gotta pull it together and put it on like some kind of a sign. Just because I think it's a good educational piece, and we're redoing the boardwalk, and it'd be a great thing to put in place when we're doing all this.
Absolutely, yeah.
Oh, yeah, just like the standard stuff, that's like, it encompasses 34
Yeah.
miles. so-
Yeah, just some facts.
I'll take that on and
Okay, I mean,
pull information in, and it's not the first interpretive signage piece I've ever worked on. so
yeah,
Awesome.
We'll coordinate.
right, then we'll make it, put it up, and I think it'll add to the whole experience of standing there and looking at the harbor.
Absolutely. Are we all in agreement? Nodding, smiles, yays,
Yes.
thumbs, okay, terrific.
We got through that pretty easy, because signs are usually really difficult to get people to all agree on. Yeah,
Usually breaks down before it.
oh yeah, I'm just telling everybody on the committee that you just went through 3 different signs and you made it all the way to the end, and we didn't have a fight or somebody didn't storm off or.
Sheesh.
Is this too late? Sorry, I was looking at my desk.
I sent the Dodge, right, so we got double them.
Oh, she did too, okay.
Thanks, Janice.
Okay.
Well, you have a copy, then,
Yep. What is it?
the tree list.
Oh.
Excuse our interruption here, just trying, the efficiency factor is good, though, we got them all coming in and giving us
Yeah.
information. All right, well, that's exciting, so instead of we just added more good work, so that's cool. So I just wanted to let you guys know that the Rockport Conservation Commission is doing a series called Taking Action on Climate Change. And what can Rockport do, which of course is because it's from their town, and that's totally appropriate, but it's really what can any town in the area do. So it's certainly applicable to Camden and beyond. I happen to be doing the next presentation. I will put the one that follows after that on the next agenda, just for, as a reminder or awareness. I'm going to be speaking about the use of native plants and their role in climate change. And so that'll be March 15th from 6 to 7:15. So as you can tell, I won't be at the next meeting that's coming up just to represent us. And then they had Aaron from Erickson Fields speak about soils, the role of soils in climate change, and they've got water-based and building and other, they've got a really good lineup. So if that's something you have the time or interest in, I know that we're trying to network and share information, and I thought that it was really pertinent that we recognize what our neighboring Conservation Commission is doing. I'll let Will actually speak to this next one, please. But we have this collaboration with the Conservation Commissions that we talked about, sharing ideas and projects and information, and it's kind of coming at me through this and other, through the district work. And there's a lot of momentum in Knox County, I'll tell you. I hope there's similar in Lincoln from my own, other work standpoint, but Knox County's got some definite momentum. So I got Will quickly, connected with some of these other Conservation Commission members, and there's going to be a meeting next week. But you actually spoke, Will, at length. Was it with Sandra or someone else? But please do tell, because the first networking event's going to happen next Tuesday.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
Thank you, Rebecca. So Sandra, I guess stepping back to kind of our initial, at least my initial saying, oh, let's chat with more people, let's bring people together. And then the step back, say, well, maybe someone's already doing this. That person in Knox County is Sandra from South Thomaston. She already has everybody's contact info. Now, Knox County is different than kind of the 5 towns that we were thinking of, but we're part of Knox County. So nonetheless, it's a place for us, I believe, to start, to connect and communicate and form relationships with other conservation commissions. Sandra is forming, yes, next Tuesday, I think was her suggestion. She had other 2 Saturdays, but it seems like people were interested in Tuesday. Her intention for the Tuesday was really just like an initial bringing of people together to hopefully plan for something that is, the core that she believes is like we believe. We want to be with other conservation commissions, but we don't want to exclude, other environmental groups. And so I actually asked her, we'll see if it works. So I asked her, I look at real estate, it's an interest of mine. And so there's a property in South Thomaston that has an old wharf, it's on the market. I asked her, hypothetically, if a new owner came in, what would that process be like for them to build or rebuild this wharf? I haven't heard back from her yet. I'm just curious to see what how their ordinance reflects. And part of that research going back into where we were with our peer ordinance. So we'll see what comes of it. But it's really, I have not done much of anything with my spreadsheet of potential invites, because I think Sandra would be very welcome to share all of the contacts that she's been building. And we can just, piggyback on that.
It is 6 p.m. Tuesday, March 7th at the Guilford Butler School, is my understanding. They're using it as a community multifunction place at this point in time. So I will be attending, and if there's anybody here that wants to join me, will be coming from a different locale, but I'm happy to scoop somebody up or we'll at least have 2 of us there. I think it will be kind of illuminating and synergizing, and then hopefully we can kind of figure out a collective direction or
So the 7th,
monthly.
this month,
Yeah.
Is that
I wish
school-
that I could go. So you'll let us know how it goes after, or I guess at the next meeting, or?
Yeah, I think she was thinking that this would be somewhat small, just to get something on the calendar for people. And then she's gone April. So I think she was thinking like May or June even, to get other bigger group of people together. But we talked a little bit, just hot topics, if you will, and we shared a lot of, similar, just similar dialogue and situations. They don't have as much of a harbor as we do, so it's not as prevalent for them, but they're very small. The town's 1,500 people, I believe, year round. So it's a very small town.
But very active, and I know that when I met with Sandra at a program that I was doing, I was in St. George, or specifically the Tenants Harbor, at the town hall there, and their Conservation Commission, they were co-sponsoring the program, and they were equally intrigued and interested in networking and sharing ideas and opportunities. So I think it'll be a really beneficial even meet and greet, and we'll see how it all kind of unfolds from there. But yeah, but it was good to know that the same energies and the same interest was buzzing around, within just a few miles away. So all the talk we already had was well worth it.
Yeah, and what's great in that I don't think we're duplicating any efforts here in like creating an organization that already exists. You know, we chatted, Sandra and I chatted a little bit about the Maine, Barb and Pamela, you guys went to the Maine Conservation Association of Conservation Commissions, and just how much information and how great and how that's been, but at times it can feel overwhelming. So we thought that this group might be able to, you know, be a little bit smaller, more nimble, and focus a little bit more regionally, and hopefully, you know, take a lot of those learnings from the state conservation group and focus on them more detailed within the county. And so hopefully that actually plays in practice as the way that we're intending.
Yeah, exactly. All right, so yeah, 6 p.m. Guilford Butler School, March 7th is the current timeframe. And Will and I will be there, and we'll let you know how it goes at the end of the month. I added a possible program with Pete Slavinsky on the shoreline stabilization techniques versus or in thinking about, natural cycles. It was that article that was shared by Allison, and he was a presenter at a previous event or day of training that she was at, and it's something that we could bring up depending on the level of interest and variability. We could also co-sponsor with some other, or this could be brought up in next week at the meeting. It might be something that we want to partner with a couple of groups. Allison, were you seeing this, Allison, as more of a internal training? Because I guess I was like, let's share this information with the world kind of approach, and have more as a public program.
Sorry, is Pete the guy that was doing the natural green softening designs instead of in this article? Or am I thinking about a different article?
Part of what
Okay, there's just a Maine Monitor article about homeowners and stabilization, a different article.
No, that's it.
Oh, I came away from that so bummed out. Like, I just got this feeling like people are trying it because they want to do something better, because gray, hardening is bad for the environment for all these reasons, but it's not working. That's the sense I got when I read the article. I don't know if I was just like had bad shades on when I read it, or did anyone else feel that way?
Well, I think that in some places there isn't a great solution to staying at that elevation. But I think I think a lot of it is about the certain things that we're trying to do that are making it worse.
Right.
And at least not doing those things. But he does have quite a few, like I sent him photos of my friend's property in Freeport that got kind of ransacked by this last storm. And he's like willing to sort of do anything. And he was trying to figure out, like, should I just plant trees, or should I? And I realized that some of the things I was telling him to do were actually wrong. And Pete said, oh, what you really don't want are just like a few big trees, because when they fall, they take everything
right up
with them. Like basically sort of the Lake Beach design that we have. And he had all these things to say, that different shrubs to plant, and there are certain situations where it's just like you're not gonna be able to be below sea level and expect a natural solution to keep the sea out. But I guess I felt hopeful about that article because it was like starting to state clearly that a lot of the things we're doing are bad.
I think it's important. I walked away, and I have a different perspective. I looked at shorelines a lot, and I've worked both in fresh and saltwater situations. And so, I've seen what the best practices are currently out there. That's, like sort of what's commonly happening, whether it's good, bad, or different, sort of the standard response approach to shoreline stabilization. And I've seen the good, the bad, and the ugly. And I think that what I walked away from the article with, with my own background and experience is that it's important to recognize that it's not a one-stop shop. It's not a one-size-fits-all. And that some of these things would definitely work in freshwater systems. However, he stated very clearly that our coastline, not Florida's necessarily, not the Carolinas, not, that our, main coastline, that many of these sort of standard approaches are, not only expensive, but they really don't stand the test of time. And it's important to recognize that, we have to look at this differently. And that what works in freshwater situations or what works in coastal Carolina situation is not necessarily what's going to work in coastal Maine situation. So, it's better to, call a spade and say, yeah, X, Y, and Z spent $30, $50, $150,000 and it didn't work. And, let's not do it again. And talk about the different mitigation techniques and talk about why learning soils and why site-specific evaluations are important and why, depending on where your shoreline is it predominant wind, is it prevailing wind, or is it, is it buffered already because it's on the leeward or the sea? It's like you have to look at all of the variabilities because it's not a one-size-fits-all situation. So, yeah, and it's not going to become less of an issue because mitigation techniques and shoreline stabilizations that have been put in 5, 10, 15, 20 years ago are going to start to kind of have their shelf life. And we've got this turnover of residency or generation. And I just think it's important that we provide some opportunities, some education and some training for what we've learned and where we can go from here.
I'm going to read it again because I really read it. I thought carefully and I was like, oh, wow, I love the idea of these natural buffers, but the article made me feel like these people spent money on them. They didn't work. And then they just ended up deciding to put in walls after all. So I must have.
And sometimes a wall in certain locales would be, kind of the best bang for the buck, but also the thing that will probably hold up for its sort of shelf life, if you will, the best. But for others, it won't be that at all. So
For others, we really need to look at like a managed retreat situation.
I manage what?
Retreats.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, she should manage retreat situation. And yeah, there's a lot of places both on freshwater as well as, saline and coastal shores that it's just the angle and it's just the wave action and the
Intensifying storms.
the
Yeah.
soils, all of those things are, you just are gonna have to expect and accept that you're gonna lose some shoreline slowly but surely, and that's just part of the natural process. It's not just one thing, it's a multitude of factors that is what it is. Yep.
You're not
So-
alone, Smith. I felt leaving the article, I was looking for more answers.
Yeah. Okay, good.
And
I
maybe
did
that's
discuss-
why we should have, Pete, and if he's willing and able, and then, like I could talk with, John McLean at DEP or a couple others. It could be a little bit of a panel discussion and, some different approach of, discuss about how it's, what best practices are or what the successes and failures are, like this, like a kind of down and dirty, like what's worked, what hasn't, and what we're seeing for the future.
That sounds great. And just a question, is Pete the state geologist?
One of them, yeah.
Okay, so it'd be the state geologist and the DEP, or some representative from, I think this would be,
Erosion control trainer for the state, so.
That's Peters?
No, John McLean,
Oh,
yeah,
the one that, yeah.
yeah, and he helps train contractors and shoreline and sediment, erosion control
Yeah, yeah.
training, so I think it would be valuable to add him to the equation.
I would think this would be of interest to, I mean, there's a number of, neighbors and people all along the coastal, property owners along the coastal line, I would think would be interested in this, especially if it was something you could zoom to for those who aren't here year round.
yeah, I think the way that Maine, I echo that, the way that Maine handles, its colonial laws of shoreline ownership, I think that, yeah, it would be to the benefit of any shoreline property owner to understand how they can best manage or, to mitigate it, which seems like it's do nothing.
Well, we'll reach out and see what the availability and interest is, the timeline for those two. I think it'd be the right pairing. And then I'll just bring it back and see what may, where it is on their calendar. I know that at least John schedules all his programs on Thursdays, and he's often 6 to 8 months out. So it looks like it could be, for my knowing him, it's probably a fall setup at this point, but
well, maybe, I mean, we maybe be trying to get something sooner around this. It might just be like, I was kind of thinking of Pete, just more like a general, like, this is what we're seeing around the state.
a more of an overview at large.
Yeah, like these are the things you should be thinking about.
Do you think there's, I find that there's, this is my experience of doing programming, and with this type of thing is that, if there's an opportunity for a site visit or a brief like walkabout, following the presentation, like if, for instance, we could do it at the Opera House, or in here, if it's like limited to however many people in the French conference room. And then we were able to look at a couple of sites. Obviously, they would have to be either public sites or, landowner permission, but there's often a lot of added interest for people to.
Could we take,
Honestly.
I love the idea. Could we take photos of like Lake Beach and Marine Ave and say the public areas that we have armored, can we get, because Lake Beach, I mean, I don't know, but I believe Pixley's been thinking about how to create better access going up and down that kayak launch. And so maybe there's changes that we'd be doing there. Maybe it'd be nice to have Pete's opinion on that. Just an idea.
Well, yeah, that might be a smaller walk and, if that's more, you want more detailed, this was more of a, before or after, how I would consider mitigation on this particular site, if you were. So.
An idea I would throw out there is and you said he does Thursday talks, but the Wednesday community conversations or whatever it's called at the yacht club over the summer.
Yeah. Awesome.
I don't know anything about it, but that's.
I mean, John, with this erosion sediment control, to me, that's more like a little bit of a different topic in terms of like controlling it and construction practices and all of that. And that's important too, but I don't know. I mean, I've seen all of this PowerPoint presentations, so it seems more like aimed at training contractors rather than like broad things that, I mean, there's room for lots of things, but where I'm seeing a deficit is in like the knowledge base for committees and town boards to be able to make recommendations and to know like what, these are the things that we know for sure are best practices. These are the things that we know that towns for sure should be looking at. These are the things that are, like unanswered and may be really specific to Camden. But because it has felt like we are struggling some to come up with concrete recommendations. And like
the regulations that we have.
more information. We've got a lot of information from like engineers who design structures, whatever, but like more to reach from in terms of, the best thing to do, like the state's trying to get like the sand dune rules, for instance, like defining, areas of, we have the main like geological maps that just define areas of potential, like unstable bluffs, for instance. Maybe there should be something in our ordinance that says that you don't build piers on unstable bluffs, but we could, like, people that give us reference points or what we should be doing from a, like a planning perspective, or what things should be in ordinances, like,
All right.
So you
So my
say
suggestion-
it wouldn't be a public audience type of, you're not thinking about using him to
I don't
speak.
think he needs to be excluded. I think it's the kind of thing that anybody could
And
come
but
to.
encourage comms, planning boards, et cetera, like really do a push. out
Right,
for-
and if, you know, it's some of it depends on who else is interested and willing, but you can start with something that would be very useful to us, and hope that I'm sure
It's duplicative.
many members of the planning board would be interested. You know, what things should we be planning for? What is the state suggesting the towns plan for?
Mm.
You know, what are the next things that we should, these are the things the state's gonna be looking into, but what should towns be doing? Because sometimes the state's gonna take care of certain things by updating some map or whatever, or I was just looking over some stuff, and NOAA's in the process of updating their like tidal data epic. It's been, when I say like what's mean low water right now, what's mean high water, that's what we're using for everything, piers. And it's the 1983 to 2001 epic, like time to 19-year period that everything's based on right now. And they're like in the process of updating that to the next one, and that's what we're going to be using. So, I mean, if we're thinking about ordinances right now, or thinking about approving projects right now that are, it's using that old, there's just a lot of stuff that when I've been reading these government reports, I'm realizing, oh, we're not thinking about that. We're not thinking about that. It'd be nice if we could get an expert to tell us these are the basic things that towns should be thinking about. This is what the state's going to be taking care of.
All right, well, then so I'm happy to reach out and just see what the availability and his and interest and, you know, what the time.
Yeah, maybe
and
something
stuff
that-
is. Right, yeah, I mean, he might be like, sure, next year, I mean, who
Right.
knows? But let's just start that there's a general consensus that this is worth pursuing further. Can I get just a nod raise kind of, yeah, everyone's, yeah, okay. So then I will do the reach out and see, again, availability, interest, I'll, state that it's really sort of a conservation commission, planning board, a municipal kind of approach, and how we can be preemptive or proactive and, and catch up or stay ahead of the curve, so to speak, if and when possible. And then we'll, I'll report back via email or certainly by the next meeting with whatever he says he can or can't do.
And question, how is it like, aside from scheduling this, like what is the typical like communication that we have, like the form of communication? How do we with the DEP? Should there be the main DEP? Should there be new regulations put? Like, for example, when Samantha and I were spending time on the letter, we came across these materials, construction materials that are being either they have been banned or they're looking to be banned. They're arsenic, they're treated lumber that is known to leach, and it looks like they're talking about regulating the sale, or it seems like a number of our, and I ask that because it seems like presumably a number of our town structures, floats or docks might have some of this lumber. Is that something that the DEP would communicate that with us, that, hey, in the next 5-10 years, you should look to budget to replace this stuff? Or is that, I don't know if that's is that a common thing or is that just kind of a towns, you're on your own, you figure out what the rules are, or is there
So
fluid?
they're banned certain materials, and like that's a question that I have, like oil-based paints on docks are, I read a document that said most states have banned this, but like in our ordinance, we should, like, you're no longer allowed to use that awful bottom paint on boats.
Yeah.
But is there something like that for piers? Like, is there a state regulation or federal regulation that takes care of all that stuff? Or
Yeah.
like the type of chemicals that can be used on seawalls, or
I Right.
Like,
Or do we need to put that in our ordinance, or does that,
right. Um,
we left it out, Samantha and I said, like, left it out because we just really weren't sure. But if we're gonna be having opportunity to chat with the DEP, it'd be really nice to understand.
Treated pilings are like that. Most of the piers lately that have gone in don't have pressure treated pilings, but the ordinance doesn't say that they can't, and many of the existing piers do. Anyway, there's just a lot of.
It got me thinking, actually got me thinking a lot of like, what the prior Conservation Commission has done with the freshwater and the foam, blue foam.
Right.
Now, I don't know if there's anything to come from the DEP, but just thinking about, that's a structure in a body of water that we have actually now said you have to remove it. Might there be something in the salt water, that has
That's
a
saltwater too. That whole ordinance is all
Oh, wow.
Camden, yeah.
Wow, okay, that's awesome. So we've done, the conservation has kind of traveled this path before, and I'm wondering or thinking that there might be more, toxic waste, that we might have to consider removing based on new knowledge.
Was there not a lot of pushback on the blue foam? I mean, are we the only town that's regulating that? I'm just so what Will and I got into is sort of, we were getting into the weeds, and I was like, well, I have to think that some of this stuff is covered by federal or state regulations. We have so much coastline. Why would we be the only ones thinking about this, particular chemical treated wood or whatever? What was the case with the blue foam? How did we end up being this one little town that's banning it and others aren't?
Oh, we were at the time, definitely the only town. We were. Oh, God. And it was Roger Ridmaster. Just he was taking all these pictures of blue foam on the section of McGonagall where Shirt Tail is.
Mhm.
And he was just started to become very frustrated by it all the time. And he researched, maybe in Florida, there was one kind of thing. And yeah, they just created the ordinance, and definitely at the time were the first one. But a lot,
Does it have toxic effects?
What is it, bioaccumulation, or is it is there a toxicity to the blue foam?
It's all that
microplastic
stuff,
accumulation.
Got it.
yeah.
And then it gets finer and finer, but it stays, in the system and
Got it.
ingested, etc. Is there any other, so I'll just keep you posted by, I can send out an email in advance of our next meeting if anything comes up. Is there any other business or anything else worth noting? Oh, Pamela's got her hand up.
Well, I just don't want this to go off the radar. It might not be anything that we want to really address at the moment, but I was wondering about the Native American Sacred Stone site that apparently is in Camden. And we were trying to, you and Brian Lightbody and I were emailing a little bit about it. Because we would, while they don't want it known, they don't want it to be known to the public, where, so in case of vandalism, it would be kind of good to know where it is and know for sure if it is protected.
Absolutely. There are a few sites that have been documented that they found things that I have a report
Okay.
that I was trying to find the other day because Herbert Mitchell sent it to me, and it's supposed to be
Yeah.
and it's along Daily Brook. But I was able to find the report he had sent me.
Is it private land?
Yes. That was just two arrowheads that were found. But yeah, I do really think we should follow up, because this gets brought up from time to time in different committees, and the Historic Resources Committee too. And they've been told that they won't say where it is, but I've never gotten to the bottom of it. It's always like this thing that comes back up. And so whatever we need to do to
I think
follow up
that
on that.
at the, let's, think it would be important to at least get, if we're for whatever reason, understandably, legally, not, privy to the information, we should be at least, assured through some like letter, some letterhead like that they have been, that the sites are identified and have protections through X or Y mechanisms, that they're, or that it's been put on their, yeah, I mean, like, I don't know how you get that, like, there's gotta be something.
justification for like just having it be like on the dark web somewhere, and nobody know, I mean, what's the reason?
Yeah,
for
yeah,
that?
like, right.
There are some sites that nobody should ever know about, even if it's to protect them, like, or we've identified 6 sites in Maine that you shouldn't know where they are, but we promise they're protected, and here's why, like, that's thing supposed to be public. I don't know what scenario, if it's so important that it can't be talked about, then it should just be buried, we should have a shrine or something with, I'm very curious.
It was a little weird, okay. Well, I took on the signage and the follow-up with the potential program, so I am not going to take on following through on this. But I think Brian will be happy to follow up and see where things are going with that. He was away today, but we can give him a gentle nudge and say, hey, do some sleuthing, and
Yeah,
and I'm sure he would be. I can't speak for him per se, but I say that he seems to be, interested enough in that topic and is good about taking on little projects that might be right up his alley. So,
Yeah.
And if he needs help, it might be interesting to someone on the Historic Resources Committee. Maybe someone has prior knowledge of it. I have no idea. But
Ask Pat
it does.
Staley.
Ask,
Yeah,
ask.
it is, Pat's the one that has talked about this before.
Okay.
Scaling.
well, and then so let's connect the Brian Lightbody with Pat, you said?
Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm pretty
so
sure
let's-
she's the one that's.
Let's
Talk
try
about
to
that.
see if they can, between them, come to full circle on this curiosity.
Can someone send me the sign locations for the Mechanical River?
Yes, sir.
Apparently, we have to ask the code enforcement officer,
Oh,
so all signs will now be funneled through the code enforcement officer, every single one.
oh, good. All right, so, all right, is there any other business comments, concerns, questions? Seeing none, I vote to adjourn the meeting, and we will be next meeting on Wednesday, March 29th, here in the French Conference Room or online, and a significant portion of that meeting will be given to Nancy Johnson to discuss the Tree City USA program and sort of some past history, relevant information, and regarding the Conservation Commission formation and work that has been done. So this should be a informative meeting.
yes.
All right.
Thank you. See you tonight.
See ya. Can I like?
Idea.
But,
Interesting.
um,
Something technological.
so
We're still talking on one thing.
yeah, so I sent the sign size to.
Turn this off.